Ethan came back from his mission after just a few weeks away, but something felt different at home. The young girl he'd adopted seemed like a completely new person. Before, she would make up stories about being sick just to spend more time with him. She'd pretend to have fevers and playfully call him husband. Now she kept her distance and formally called him uncle, something she had always refused to do before. Gone were the trendy outfits she used to proudly show off. Instead, she wore an old-school uniform that covered her completely. Ethan thought she was just growing up since she had turned 18, but there was more to the story. The truth was that she had memories from another life. In that previous existence, she had married Ethan Carter. After dedicating 50 years of her life to him, he had passed away. Then she discovered a photo he kept hidden, a beautiful woman smiling brightly. On the back, he had written, "The love of my life for 50 years. Her heart broke in that moment. In this second chance at life, she decided not to chase after Ethan's dream for her to go to Harvard. Instead, she applied to the Military Medical University, following in the footsteps of her parents who had died serving others. She wanted to become a doctor who helped people around the world. For once, she wanted to live life on her own terms. The day her acceptance letter arrived, Ethan had just returned from his military mission. She instinctively hid the thick envelope behind her back when she saw him in the main hall with Olivia Jennings. Olivia's sugary voice filled the room as she showed off her gifts. She had brought fine silk fabric for Aunt Helen, who wanted something new for fall. She had found special records for Grandpa, who loved opera. Then Olivia pulled out a blue plaid tie and moved to place it around Ethan's neck, smiling shyly. "I bought this secretly when we were at the mall," Olivia said. "It suits you perfectly. Let's save it for our wedding day." The young woman's mind went blank. So they really were getting married. Maybe it was time for her to step aside. Without her childish interference, Ethan could finally be with the person he truly loved. Olivia noticed her standing there but pretended not to see her. She wrapped her arms around Ethan's neck and deliberately asked loud enough to be heard, "Oh, did you not bring a gift back for Emily?" Olivia's voice carried a hint of mockery as she asked, "Do you think she'll be mad at her future aunt? She's never seemed to like me much." Ethan sighed heavily. "She's just a kid, immature. Don't take it personally. Even though she grew up in the Carter family, she's still an outsider. Sooner or later, she'll move out." I stood frozen, my fingers trembling. It felt like someone had taken my heart and crushed it to pieces. My parents were military doctors who worked under General Carter. They died protecting a young reporter who had rushed into a battle zone. With no one left to care for me, General Carter took pity and brought me into his home. I was only 7 then. Ethan was 17. As a child, Ethan always comforted me. He told me to think of this place as my home and to see him as family. But now I had become an outsider. After getting Ethan to say what she wanted, Olivia finally turned to me, pretending to be surprised. "Oh, Emily, you're back." She walked over and grabbed my hand, her sharp nails digging into my skin just enough that no one else would notice. "Don't take what we just said too seriously, okay? Ethan still cares about you. It's just that during our last mission at the military base, you really crossed a line. He's still upset, so he said those things without thinking." In my past life, when I learned Ethan was taking Olivia to the military district instead of me, I was heartbroken. He had promised to take me along. But after I told him how I felt about him, he stopped treating me kindly. He even pointed at me and called me shameless. He took away all his special treatment and chose Olivia instead. Olivia had rubbed it in, asking me, "Emily, why do you look so unhappy? Ethan and I are going for official business. I know you don't like me, but you need to see the bigger picture. Learn to understand what matters." Ethan, still angry with me, had coldly explained, "Olivia is a military reporter. We need journalists to document the mission. If I don't bring her, who should I bring?" Stop letting your childish feelings get in the way of our work." When they returned from the base, they officially became a couple. To make sure I gave up completely, Ethan deliberately showed his affection for Olivia in front of me. But this time around, I didn't lock myself in my room crying until my eyes were swollen. I didn't throw a fit or embarrass myself trying to stop Ethan from getting married. Instead, I simply smiled and asked, "So you two are getting married?" Ethan frowned and replied coldly, "What if we are? I'm warning you, don't try to pull anything. Olivia is going to be your aunt. From now on, she'll be the future lady of the Carter family. You better know your place. Otherwise, I won't hesitate to send you to the capital to live with Grandpa." Before he could finish, I cut in, "Congratulations, Uncle." Ethan froze. In my previous life, I had refused to call him Uncle, but now I finally accepted it. He seemed thrown off by my response. Olivia quickly noticed the change between us. A brief look of disappointment crossed her calculating face, but she quickly covered it with a bright smile and stepped forward. "Emily, I brought you something," she said. "Ethan and I are getting married soon, so we've been clearing out stuff at home. Consider this my gift to you as your future sister-in-law." She handed me a large box. When I opened it, I found it filled with her old clothes. This was nothing new. Olivia always did this. Any clothes, shoes, or accessories she no longer wanted, she'd pass down to me. In the past, Ethan had at least bought me new clothes, dressing me up like a little princess. But now I was only worthy of hand-me-downs. Olivia smiled, as if she were being incredibly generous. "I treat you like family. There's no need to waste money on new things when these are still perfectly fine. Look, this trench coat. I bought it when I went to the mountains for an interview. The style might be a bit outdated and there's a small tear from when it got caught on something, but if you stitch it up, it'll be good as new. And this skirt, a tailor made it for me. It's one of a kind. It has a little stain, but that doesn't matter, does it? You're just a kid. No need to be so particular." Finally, she dug through the box and pulled out half a melted lipstick. Pressing her lips together in a smile, she added, "Ethan mentioned you like makeup. I had a colleague bring this back from overseas for me. I've barely used it, so you can have it." Ethan shot me a disapproving look. "It doesn't suit you," he muttered. I let out a bitter laugh. People always said Ethan and Olivia were a perfect match, talented and beautiful, a couple made in heaven. And yet, in my past life, I couldn't accept it. I had once believed that if I wore Olivia's old clothes and put on makeup like a grown woman, maybe Ethan would see me differently. But in his eyes, I was just a poor imitation, a cheap, laughable copy. This time, I didn't fight against it. I smiled naturally and said, "Thank you, Uncle Ethan. Thank you, Olivia. I'm still a student, and these things don't really suit me. You should keep them for yourselves." Only then did they notice how I had changed. I was no longer wearing clothes too mature for my age or covering my face with badly applied makeup trying to look older. Instead, I wore my school uniform, the same one I had once hated for being too plain and childish. The same one that now covered me completely. Ethan's expression softened slightly. "It's good that you're finally acting your age," he said. I took a deep breath. "Do you need anything else from me, Uncle Ethan, Olivia? If not, I'd like to go back to my room and rest." They had no reason to stop me. I turned and left them behind. That evening, Ethan and Olivia went out to order their wedding outfits and cakes. It wasn't until late at night that I saw the headlights of his old military Jeep flash outside the house. I had already eaten dinner alone in my room. I was quietly packing my things when I looked up and found Ethan standing in the doorway. I didn't know how long he had been there. His gaze moved to the thick envelope sitting on my desk, his expression changing slightly. "Is that your admission letter from Harvard?" he asked. Ethan had always wanted me to apply to Harvard. He believed I should attend the best university and receive the best education possible. In my previous life, I had done everything to meet his expectations. I had studied endlessly, pushing myself to exhaustion, and finally gotten in. I had followed his wishes step by step, hoping it would bring me closer to him. But even then, I had never truly won his heart. In this life, I had chosen a different path. But I didn't tell him the truth. I simply nodded and said, "Yes, it arrived yesterday." For the first time in a long while, Ethan smiled. "You should go to the capital and tell Grandpa the good news. Since Olivia and I are busy preparing for the wedding, we won't have time to look after you." I gave a quiet nod. "All right." The Military Medical University started its semester earlier than most schools. I had been wondering how to leave without catching his attention, but now he was sending me away himself. I no longer needed to make up an excuse. Ethan paused for a moment before asking, "Do you need me to assign a security officer to take you there?" I shook my head. "No need." "Then go to the train station tomorrow by yourself. Olivia and I will be visiting an old commander. Oh, and one more thing. After Olivia and I get married, we plan to convert your room into a nursery. I'll have a guest room downstairs set up for you. Make sure to pack up all your belongings before you leave." The next day, Ethan was gone by the time I woke up. I finished packing my bags, then took one last look around my room. In the wardrobe, there were still a few things he had bought for me: an old secondhand camera he had carefully selected from multiple sellers, and some small souvenirs he had brought back from his missions. Things he thought would make me happy. I didn't take any of them with me. On the bedside table, there was still a photo of the two of us. I picked it up, ran my fingers lightly over the surface, and then set it back down. After all, from now on, they would be a happy family of 3. There was no longer a place for me here. I carried my luggage downstairs, stopping at the doorway for one final look at the place I had called home for the past 10 years. In my heart, I silently said goodbye to the past, to Ethan Carter. From now on, we would never see each other again. I had only been at university for a week when Ethan showed up. I had known he would find out sooner or later. After all, Grandpa Carter was in the capital while my school was in the Northwest. The student roster of the Military Medical University was shared with the military. Given the Carter family's deep connections, there was no way they wouldn't uncover the truth. That day, I was carrying a thermos on my way to the boiler room to get hot water when Ethan's military jeep pulled up in front of me. The moment he stepped out, he immediately confronted me. "Who told you to apply to the Military Medical University? Didn't I tell you to apply to Harvard?" Trailing behind him was Olivia Jennings, clinging to his arm as she added in a deliberately sweet but sharp voice, "Emily, you're being so immature. Ethan and I went through so much trouble to plan a future for you. If you resent us, fine. But how could you gamble with your own future?" Olivia continued. I met Ethan's gaze steadily and said, "I'm not gambling with my future. This is what I want to do." But he didn't care about what I wanted. He spoke in the same commanding tone he always used, as if his word was final. "Where's your dorm? Pack your things and withdraw from school. You can retake the entrance exam next year." Hearing those words again brought back memories of my past life. I had spent countless nights studying under dim lights, pushing myself to the brink of collapse just for a few words of approval from him. Now standing here, I felt nothing but exhaustion. When I saw the security officer heading toward my dormitory, I instinctively stepped forward to block his way. For the first time, I called him by his full name. "Ethan Carter," I said, looking directly at him. "What right do you have to interfere in my life? Are you speaking as an outsider, an uncle in name only, or as the man I once foolishly loved?" The moment those words left my mouth, the unspoken tension between us finally broke. Ethan's face darkened, his fury barely contained. In his anger, he slapped me across the face. A ringing sound echoed in my ears, but my mind had never been clearer. That slap was complete repayment for the years he had raised me. From now on, we owed each other nothing. Ethan seemed to realize what he had done. He looked down at his own hand as if in disbelief, and for the first time, he lowered his head and murmured, "I'm sorry, Emily, but I was doing this for your own good. Isn't it better for you to attend the top university?" A mocking smile tugged at the corner of my lips. "No, it's not. Because I am Emily Carter. I have my own dreams, my own path to follow. I don't want to live according to your expectations anymore." Ethan's frustration boiled over. He scoffed, his voice filled with disbelief. "Expectations? Haven't I always made your choices for you? What expectations could you possibly have of your own?" And there it was. Because everything in my life had been dictated by Ethan, I had once believed he was my whole world. I had lived solely for him, blindly chasing after him. I had thought that as long as I kept trying, he would one day see me. But now that I had stepped away from the Carter family, chosen the military medical university, and broadened my horizons, I realized Ethan was just another person in this vast world. And I had countless other choices beyond simply becoming Mrs. Carter. I let out a light laugh, my gaze unwavering. "So tell me, Ethan, in what capacity do you think you have the right to interfere in my life?" His expression hardened, his jaw tightening. "I've made my decision. If my parents were still alive, they would support me. I have my own future, and I will pursue my dreams here. I will build my own life and my own career. I might even find someone who will walk by my side for the rest of my life. I've grown up, Ethan. I'm not that little girl who followed you around anymore, and I'm certainly not your puppet." As we spoke, a few male students jogged past us. They were young and full of energy, wearing athletic uniforms from their morning training. One of them waved at me with a bright smile. Ethan's face twisted with something I couldn't quite name. He had probably never thought about me leaving him behind. Never imagined me standing next to another man, holding someone else's hand, becoming someone else's wife. I gave him a small smile. "Uncle Ethan, aren't you getting married soon? Then let me wish you and the one you truly love a lifetime of happiness. A wedding needs lots of planning. You should be focusing on that, not on an outsider like me, someone with no blood ties to your family." I paused before adding, "I heard the wedding is next month. University work is very demanding and I won't have time. I won't be coming to your wedding." Ethan said nothing, but his face darkened unexpectedly. Something went wrong at Ethan and Olivia's wedding, and somehow I was involved. I had only been at the military medical university for less than a month when a newspaper article threw me into a public controversy. On the front page was a large, grainy, black and white photo of an old man in his 60s kneeling on the ground. His face showed pure desperation. He was holding the hand of a young female military doctor, begging for help. That young military doctor was me. The headline read, "Elderly man suffers medical emergency, begs young military doctor for help. Heartless soldier ignores his pleas." The reporter's name at the bottom was Olivia Jennings. But that wasn't what really happened. The military medical university had strict rules. Students were only allowed to leave campus once a month for a single day to buy things they needed. That day, I had been at a store near campus when I saw the elderly man. His wife had suddenly collapsed from a brain bleed. But I was just a first-year student, barely trained and completely unqualified to handle such a serious emergency. The only thing I could do was run back to school to get help. Fortunately, I ran into one of my professors at the school gates. Thanks to his help, we got the elderly woman to the hospital in time to save her life. The man had knelt before me not to beg for help, but to thank me. He was only on his knees for 2 seconds before we pulled him back up. Somehow in those 2 seconds, a reporter had captured the moment, twisted the story, and turned it into a nationwide scandal. "Emily, we understand your situation and we believe in your character and dedication to serving people," my instructor said. "But the impact of this article has been terrible. Many readers have sent letters demanding that the school take action against you. The university needs you to provide an explanation as soon as possible." I took a deep breath, staring at the name beneath the headline. "Don't worry, Professor. I'll handle this." The next time I saw Ethan and Olivia was when they came to the Capitol to meet Grandpa Carter and finalize their wedding arrangements. I walked straight up to Olivia and slammed the newspaper down in front of her, along with statements from the elderly couple and my professor clearing my name. Olivia's face stiffened, but she quickly forced a smile. "Oh, Emily, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were the person in the photo. The picture was taken by one of my colleagues. I was just following his notes when I wrote the article." I raised an eyebrow. Even strangers managed to figure out who I was from that blurry photo. And yet you, someone who knows me well, want me to believe you had no idea? Do you really think that excuse works? She opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off. "Is this what your newspaper does? Printing lies without checking the truth first? Do you journalists just sit in your offices making up stories instead of investigating?" Her face flushed with anger. "Do you even know my credentials? Do you know my standing in the journalism world? And you, a mere student without even a diploma, dare to question me?" I let out a cold laugh and stepped closer, watching the unease cross her face. "Ethan once told me you were an exceptional woman, someone so outstanding that he forced me to retake my exams just so I could follow your path. But now I see that you're nothing special. After all, not only have you insulted my honor as a soldier, but you've also disgraced your profession as a journalist." I cut her off before she could make excuses. My days of being manipulated were over. I looked straight at Olivia and spoke firmly. I asked if she understood what happens when someone makes up lies about a soldier. Did she realize it's actually illegal to create tension between military personnel and regular citizens? I warned her that unless she wanted to end up behind bars, she needed to write a retraction and apologize publicly. Otherwise, she'd have to face the consequences. Olivia's eyes got red and watery. Her lips started to shake as she tried to downplay the situation. She mumbled that news stories come and go quickly, claiming this was just a minor issue that would soon be forgotten. Then she admitted the real reason for her hesitation. Taking back her article now would destroy everything she'd worked for. All this time, Ethan had been quiet in the background. Finally, he stepped forward with a dark expression. For a brief moment, I thought he would support me as a fellow soldier. I expected him to understand my anger and help clear my name. Instead, he frowned and started defending Olivia. He claimed the article wasn't even her fault, saying she'd been misled by someone she worked with. Ethan's words cut deep as he questioned why I was making such a big deal about the situation. He reminded everyone how hard Olivia had worked to build her career. Then he had the nerve to ask if I really wanted to ruin her future over something he considered trivial. I felt my breath catch in my throat. My chest tightened, and tears threatened to spill from my eyes. I wasn't sure if anger or disappointment hit me harder, probably both at once. I squeezed my hands into fists and forced myself to keep my voice steady. I challenged Ethan directly. What about me and my future? I reminded him how much effort I put into getting accepted at the military medical university. This wasn't just my personal dream, it was also carrying on my parents' legacy. Now, because of some careless words from Olivia, my reputation was completely ruined. I asked if that meant nothing to him. Ethan stared at me for what felt like forever before speaking again. His response was worse than his silence. He suggested I couldn't even guarantee getting my degree. Then he actually said it might be better if I just quit the military medical university altogether. According to him, I could retake exams next year and try for Harvard instead. Before he could finish that thought, my hand moved on its own. A loud slap echoed through the room, leaving everyone in shocked silence. Even I froze for a moment, surprised by what I'd just done. Ethan's face now had a bright red handprint on it. He frowned and stared at me like he couldn't believe what happened. Olivia reacted first. rushing toward him with a high-pitched scream. The tension in the room reached a breaking point, and I knew there was no going back from what I'd just done. Olivia jumped in, her voice accusing. She claimed I was just upset about her marrying Ethan and was using this situation to hurt her. She reminded me that Ethan was my elder and questioned how I could treat him this way after the Carter family had raised me. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Did I owe the Carter family anything? In my mind, I had already repaid that debt with 50 years of loyalty, only to be tossed aside when it mattered most. I reminded her that my parents had saved countless lives in battle, including Carter family members. General Carter hadn't taken me in out of pure kindness. It was because of gratitude and guilt for what my parents had sacrificed. If anyone owed anyone, the Carter family owed mine. I shifted my focus back to Ethan, my eyes hard. I told Olivia she was wrong about my feelings. Maybe I had loved Ethan once, but not anymore. Not after what he had just said. All I felt now was disgust, the same disgust I felt toward her. Ethan's expression changed slightly. I could see the tension building in his face as I continued speaking without wavering. 10 years of complicated emotions, love and resentment mixed together, I declared them settled today. From this moment forward, Ethan and I were nothing to each other. As I turned to leave, Ethan grabbed my arm instinctively, like he wanted to say something important. But I didn't give him the chance. I pulled my arm away forcefully and walked out. In the days that followed, I gathered all the evidence needed and worked with university officials to file a formal complaint against the newspaper. The leadership took the matter seriously right away. They not only retracted Olivia's article, but also published an apology that ran for an entire week. Olivia faced harsh consequences because of the scandal she created and the damage it caused to civilian-military relations. Her journalism credentials were permanently revoked. When General Carter learned about everything that had happened, he was absolutely furious. He immediately opposed Ethan and Olivia's wedding plans. I later found out that on the day I left the Carter household, General Carter had returned home and beaten Ethan so severely with a belt that it left him with bruises and torn skin. Just like that, the connection between Ethan and me was completely severed. 12 months later, war erupted. Ethan was badly wounded as the fighting intensified on the front lines. Students from the Military Medical University, including myself, were sent to field hospitals to help. While we weren't experienced enough to perform complex surgeries, we could still handle basic wound care and bandaging for the injured soldiers. News traveled quickly through the medical camps. One day, I overheard someone say that General Carter had lost a leg in an explosion. The war was taking its toll on everyone I once knew. My classmates whispered about General Carter's condition as they worked. Some who knew about my history with Ethan approached me hesitantly. They asked if I wanted to check on General Carter, concern written across their faces. I kept my face blank as I continued wrapping a wounded soldier's injury. "I don't have time," I replied flatly. "That's the critical injury ward. We wouldn't be useful there anyway." My mind drifted to my past life. When Ethan had gone to war then, I had been young and foolish. Still just a university student, I had rushed to find him without thinking about the consequences. On the battlefield, a grenade had exploded between us. The blast had left me deaf. Ethan, feeling responsible for what happened to me, had been pressured into marriage by General Carter. Meanwhile, Olivia had waited years for Ethan with no result. She eventually gave up and left the country with a foreign man. Back then, I had thought that without my desperate, foolish love getting in the way, Ethan could have been with the person he truly loved, his white moonlight. But after all the twists and turns of fate, this was still the ending he faced. I saw Ethan again 2 months later. His condition had improved enough that he'd been moved to a regular hospital room for recovery, but his left leg had been amputated. He could never serve as a soldier again. This loss devastated him. For days, he lashed out at everyone around him. The hospital staff avoided his room whenever possible, terrified of setting off his anger. No one dared leave anything near his bed or stay longer than absolutely necessary. Then came the day when it was my turn to care for him. The moment I stepped into the room, Ethan froze. His face went pale, his lips trembling slightly. I acted as if he were just another patient. I went through the standard procedures, changing his bandages, treating his wounds, completing everything with clinical precision. When I finished, I turned to leave without saying a word. "Emily," he called after me. I stopped. Through the mask covering my face, only my cold eyes were visible as I turned back to look at him. A bitter laugh escaped his lips. "You've changed so much." Indeed, I had changed after joining the military medical university. Following my parents' footsteps had helped me truly understand what I wanted from life and who I was meant to be. This wasn't the same Emily he once knew. The battlefield had changed me, day after day facing life and death, crawling through war ruins, surviving gunfire and bloodshed. I wasn't the same girl who once hid behind Ethan, seeing nothing but love, with eyes only for him. I looked at him without emotion. "Do you need anything else? I have other patients waiting." His voice cracked with weariness. "Emily, do you still refuse to forgive me?" But Ethan was wrong. In the adult world, forgiveness wasn't the point. I had simply grown up. I understood so many things now, yet something still puzzled me. The battlefield in my past life had never been this brutal. What had changed? Where had things gone wrong? The answer arrived sooner than expected. The military released a statement revealing the terrible truth. Our army had suffered devastating losses because someone had leaked classified military intelligence. Among the list of traitors was Olivia Jennings, alongside several of her journalist colleagues. Everything suddenly clicked into place. Olivia had used her journalism career to infiltrate the Carter family and get close to Ethan, all to gather military secrets. In my past life, I had always been suspicious of her, keeping my guard up, which must have made it harder for her to extract information from Ethan. Then, after I returned injured from the battlefield, Ethan had been forced to marry me under pressure, cutting off all Olivia's access and ending her mission too soon. She hadn't left the country heartbroken after all. She had fled to avoid being caught. The most tragic part was that Ethan had spent his entire life yearning for her, treasuring her memory, even writing a book dedicated to her. He never realized the greatest betrayal came from the woman he had held so dear. When Ethan saw the traitors list, he was completely stunned. A raw, agonized scream tore from his throat. He tried pushing himself up from the bed, rage burning in his eyes. Even if he had to crawl, he wanted to confront Olivia and demand answers. With only one leg, he collapsed helplessly to the floor. "That woman, why? Why would she do this?" he gasped. "Emily? She got the information from me, didn't she? That's why we lost so many soldiers, isn't it? That's why all those men died?" The room erupted into chaos. Medical staff rushed in, pinning him down as he fought against them, his screams wild and broken. The truth had shattered whatever was left of the man I once knew. Ethan clutched at me desperately, his voice breaking. "Tell me, Emily. Tell me I wasn't that much of a fool. How could I have been so blind?" But no amount of tears could change what had happened. Looking at the broken man before me, my mind traveled back to the Ethan from my past life, the one who had written "the love of my life" for 50 years on the back of our old photograph. If he had known the truth then, would he still have spent his entire life mourning the woman who betrayed him? Olivia was arrested for treason. Ethan, because of his role in leaking military intelligence, was dishonorably discharged from service. Now under investigation, he had no future ahead of him. His life had crumbled completely. The war continued for another 6 months before finally ending. My classmates and I finished our mission at the front lines and returned to school to continue our education. No matter what lay ahead, the time we spent on the battlefield, the lives we saved, and the hardships we endured had changed us forever. On the day we left the field hospital, Ryan Zhao proposed to me in front of everyone. Ryan and I had met at Military Medical University. We were more than just classmates. We were comrades who had faced danger together. We shared the same dreams and the same dedication to saving lives. We had given our youth to this calling, and someday we would give our entire lives to it. There were no fancy roses or diamond rings, just a handful of small daisies he had picked from the roadside. But in a place surrounded by rubble and scorched earth, finding even these simple flowers for a proposal meant everything. In that moment, I saw my parents reflected in him. Ryan knelt on one knee, his voice strong with emotion. "Emily, marry me. I will spend my life making you happy. I will stand beside you and walk this road with you until the very end." Tears filled my eyes as my thoughts drifted back to my past self, the girl who had chased after Ethan Carter so desperately. Back then, Ethan had always been beyond my reach. No matter how hard I tried, I could only catch glimpses of his back. In his eyes, I had always been the annoying little girl who clung to him, the housekeeper who cooked and cared for him, never someone he could see as an equal or a partner. But now, I no longer needed to lower myself, humbling and begging for affection or pity. With Ryan, I had found something real. I rushed into Ryan's arms, crying as all the years of sacrifice, bloodshed, and pain finally led to this perfect moment. Cheers exploded throughout the hospital. Congratulations echoed through the halls, a thunderous wave of joy and support. Ethan must have heard it from his hospital room. If he looked out the window, he would see me wrapped tightly in Ryan's embrace. That afternoon, I went to change Ethan's bandages one last time. He stayed quiet throughout the procedure, not saying a word even as I finished and gathered my things to leave. Just as I reached the door, he finally spoke. "Congratulations." It was the same word I had once said to him and Olivia all those years ago. Ryan and I planned our wedding with hopeful hearts. Before the ceremony, we traveled to the capital to visit Grandpa Carter. Since my parents were no longer alive, and he was the one who had taken me in, it seemed right to tell him about my marriage personally. That evening after dinner, Grandpa Carter's hands trembled slightly as he placed a small, weathered metal box in front of me. "These are the belongings your parents left behind," he said quietly. "You were too young before. I was afraid they would cause you pain, so I kept them. But now you've grown up and you're starting your own family. It's time for you to have them." I opened the box with careful fingers. Inside were photographs of my biological parents, their identification papers, and an old yellowed newspaper clipping. As I traced the faded ink, my heart raced. Something about the article felt strangely familiar. Following the clues from the news piece, I began digging deeper, and that's when I discovered the shocking truth. The journalist responsible for my parents' deaths on the battlefield was Olivia Jennings. Back then, she had been just a fresh graduate, an intern at a newspaper. Desperate to prove herself, she had recklessly entered the war zone despite all warnings. She had crossed beyond the safety perimeter, determined to capture the perfect frontline photograph. Her actions had caused the accident that killed my parents. Because she was still a student at the time, the military had secretly protected her, covering up her involvement. She had graduated without consequences, her reckless mistake buried under secrecy. From there, she had climbed the journalism ladder, using her pen like a weapon to build her own legacy. When Grandpa Carter learned this truth, his face darkened with disgust. "No wonder I disliked her from the first moment I met her," he muttered. The circle had finally closed. In finding love with Ryan, I had also found the truth about my past. "There was always something off about her," Grandpa Carter muttered darkly. "Ethan was a fool to be blinded by her." The military eventually reached their decision about Ethan's case. Though he had unknowingly leaked classified information, they took his battlefield service into account. His war accomplishments balanced against his mistakes, saving him from harsh punishment. But they stripped away everything that defined him: his military rank, his title, his entire career. For someone like Ethan, this punishment cut deeper than prison ever could. He became a recluse after that, barely leaving his room, hiding from the world like a wounded animal. He finally emerged on my wedding day with Ryan. Leaning heavily on a steel cane, he watched from a distance before slowly making his way toward me. He handed me a wedding gift that I recognized immediately: his mother's bracelet, the precious Carter family heirloom. In my past life, even after 50 years of caring for him, he had never given it to me. I had always known it was meant for Olivia. Yet now, of all times, he was offering it to me. His hair had turned gray and his eyes were bloodshot. The handsome face that had charmed so many women had aged decades in just a few years. But when he looked at me, a faint light still flickered in his gaze, as if he had finally found some clarity amid his shattered life. I shook my head and gently pushed the bracelet back into his hands. "Mr. Carter, this bracelet is a Carter family heirloom meant for the future daughter-in-law. Today I'm marrying Ryan. It wouldn't be right for you to give this to me." The light in his eyes died instantly. A bitter, self-mocking smile crossed his face. His lips moved slightly as he murmured, "You're right." Before the wedding reception even ended, he left quietly. Not long after, I received news of his suicide. In this life, Ethan never became the respected general who spent his final years fondly remembering a lost love. Instead, he became a man blinded by emotions and deception. A man who betrayed his comrades and whose name became associated with shame. He spent his last days drowning in guilt and self-hatred, unable to bear the weight of his mistakes. But I stayed strong on the path I had chosen, with the person I truly loved by my side. I would devote my life to something far greater than a fleeting, misguided love, something that would truly make a difference in this world.